始めようか。
Hello, Trace and Foxtrot. It's been a little over a month since Umamusume has released. By now, you have won a few URA finales and you are now in the endgame, getting consistent hard difficulty daily runs, team races, and of course, legend races. Other than that, you might be gunning for higher rated horses around the B plus and even A range. If you are, this video is for you. As we have mentioned in the first guide I made, speed is king, and to be honest, it still is. Outside of career and URA in particular, however, speed is no longer king, especially in team trials or PvP. The new king is now stamina. There is a saying, when your Uma is out of stamina, your speed becomes a decoration. This is why stamina is very important in PvP. If your Uma is even 1 full second out of stamina, they will decelerate ever so rapidly and you will most likely lose the race. Now in team trials and most races outside URA, these are the values you want to aim for Umas depending on race length. For sprint, you want about 500 stamina. For mile, you want 600 stamina. For medium, you want 900 and 1 gold skill at least. For long, you want 1000 range and if you can, max it out, and about 2 gold skills. Now, I want to emphasize aim, alright? Now, because I know for a fact that reaching these values is not something most people can do consistently. I am 100% aware that not everyone has the luxury of 9 Uma parents, let alone meta and SSR cards that are not speed cards. On top of that, you are still at the mercy of many RNG present in URA career. Such as, but not limited to, card spread during early game training. You do not want cards to show up too often in one single stat that is not speed or stamina. You also do not want them to not show up in less than desirable stats like guts, power, or even wit. The goal of year 1 training is getting your bond levels for your cards and at the same time raising speed, power, and stamina to ideal levels before you enter classic year. Raising RNG is still a problem. You could have 1200 power, and that will not prevent you from being boxed in and losing a race. Having 1200 wit does not guarantee skills will trigger either. The only guarantee at high levels of wit is that some skills will trigger, but it is realistic to expect that at least one skill that is not your Uma's unique skill will not trigger, so keep that mentality whenever you enter a race. You also have events that your Uma has, be it Gold Ship, Rice Shower, etc. Your Uma may trigger negative events. These events could bring your mood down, give you migraines, sleep deprived, and at worst possible times it can happen. For example, before summer camp. Meaning that if you are unlucky, you will trigger the sleep deprived event and you will get Night Owl. Meaning that you cannot remove the debuff with the infirmary because infirmary is not available during summer camp. This means that after every day in summer camp, there is a chance that you will get Night Owl. And for every trigger of Night Owl, there is a chance that it will also lower your mood. Trying to remove a debuff is also not guaranteed. You can be lucky and remove it in 1 turn, or really unlucky, and have 3 to 4 consecutive infirmary visits and not have it removed. Now, depending on the debuff, it can be something you can ignore. For example, Practice Poor is something you can ignore. If you know what kind of events your cards have or your Uma has, they may have a Practice Perfect event, and if you trigger it, it will basically remove the debuff. However, there are some debuffs that you really can't ignore. One of them, of course, being Slacker. For Slacker, there is roughly a 25% chance on every training that your Uma will not show up. Not only does this, waste a day and reduce their mood, but it also reduces your relationship level with the director, which is not good. Rainbows also have RNG. Now, ideally, you want big rainbows, meaning, for example, if you have 4 speed cards, when you have a speed rainbow, you want at least half of that, ideally. Well, ideally, of course, you want all 3, all 4, right? But realistically, you want at least half of that. So, if not most of your cards on a specific stat, be it stamina, power, speed, if you're rolling guts and wit build, then your best rainbow is having at least half of the stat cards that you have. So if you have say 2 stamina cards, well, obviously you need 1 card. So in this case, you want both stamina cards. If you are running 3 to 4 speed cards, a really good rainbow for you is maybe having 3 speed cards, and then the rest could be your other cards. Now, more often than not, you will have at best just 1 card on your rainbow training, and that is not ideal, but that is what you will have most of the time. And there are many more RNG elements that I did not even mention. By far, in my opinion, the hardest UMA length to build in terms of meeting your stamina goals is definitely long. Right now, most people have MLB Kitasan Black, so you won't have a shortage of people to borrow that card from. And that is a speed card. On top of that stat value, you get from, say, 2 rainbow cards on stamina. So you have 2 stamina cards, say, for example, you have Rice Shower and Majora McQueen, both rainbow on stamina. The amount of stamina you get from that training compared to if you say just MLB Kitasan Black and another, not even LB SSR card on speed, speed is going to win out in terms of just raw stats. And that's because that is how stamina is designed, unfortunately. The amount you get per training is not so high. It also hurts that most of the time, your stamina training is much lower than power, wit, and obviously speed. Most people by the start of Classic Year have wit level 2 or 3, and at least speed level 2 or 3, with power at maybe level 2, especially if you are a sprint or a mile UMA, and rarely stamina beyond level 1. And if you're lucky, level 2. Now, this is because most people rely on stamina inheritance. A 9 spark UMA will give you about 64 stamina at the start of your career. If you have 2 of those, that's literally 128. This means that on every inheritance event, which is every April of every year, you will get 128, at least around 128 stamina. So, if you multiply that by 2, that's 256, plus the 128 that you get at the start of your career, that is 384 stamina. That is a lot of stamina. This means that as a sprint or mile UMA, now realistically speaking, let's say that roughly you get 100 stamina from inheritance. This means that as a sprint or mile UMA, if you do not take into account your inheritance or inspiration, once you hit the 200-300 stamina mark based on maybe stamina, power training, your stamina will be 500 or 600 by the end of the career, because you will get a total of 300 stamina just from inheritance, which is the target stamina for the end of URA for sprint and mile UMAs. So how do we alleviate this? This is where we stick with 2 stat support decks. Now, you've probably seen guides that have more than 2 stat in their card decks, right? You've probably seen decks that have 3 speed, 2 stamina, and 1 wit, or 1 power. They can afford that luxury because most of these cards are LB. They have dupes, and on top of that, cards that fit the UMA's role. For example, Kitasan Black's card skills are very frontrunner centric. Special Week Speed card is more suited for pace chasers. Now, since most people do not have that luxury of having these specific cards, we stick with consistency, because in a perfect world, every card that you bring fits the role of your UMA. But not all of us have a perfect world. Not all of us are whaling, and most of us are free to play, or we just get the monthly premium currency, right? So we trade perfection instead for consistency. 2 stats only. Now, for sprint and mile, you would want 4 speed cards and 2 power cards. Most of your stamina needs will be met by power training, and specifically power rainbow training, and occasional stat correcting stamina during summer camp, and if you are lucky or unlucky, early stamina training, because a lot of your cards landed on stamina. For medium, a 4-2 speed stamina spread is ideal. And like I mentioned, if you are not reaching your stamina levels, in this case, you go for a 3-3 split. For long, 3-3 split is very, very consistent. Now, if your luck is not so good, or if you lack SR, SSR cards that are stamina, you may have to run a 2-4 deck. Now, having low speed is not ideal in most scenarios, but with long distance Umas, having lower speed than stamina is practically expected. Because you see, the target speed for all races up until medium is still 1200. Of course, right? If you have 900 stamina, that's a lot of stamina training you did for a medium Uma. So you'd need to be very lucky if your speed is even above 1000. That's why it's a target speed. It's not a requisite or an expected speed. It's just a thing to aim for. The fact that the target speed for long Umas is 900, that should tell you already how important stamina is for long races and how difficult it is to get even somewhere above 1000 or 1100 stamina for a long range Uma. I really want to emphasize the word target. Realistically speaking, depending on your parents, your cards, RNG that I mentioned and did not mention, you will probably see any run where you reach your target stamina lucky. That's really how you're going to see it. And that really is what it is like when you are not spending a lot of money in Umamusume. You have to deal with luck more often than whales, and until you have 9-star Uma parents, this will be your main opponent. Luck. And this is why we want to focus on two main stats for Umas: speed and stamina for medium and long, speed and power for sprint and mile. And the reason why power is the focus for sprint and mile is because the stamina requirement is much more forgiving: 500 for sprint and 600 for mile. And we do need more power for sprint and mile because we need to accelerate to our top speed really fast because the distance is very short. As for skills, gold recovery skills are ideal and nice to have even in sprint and mile, but they are not necessarily required for sprint and mile. After all, for sprint and mile, you really want as many speed skills as you can to really help your Uma get to the top speed and keep that top speed. They are considered, however, necessary in medium and long, and I am referring to gold recovery skills. In high levels of PvP, most teams have one Uma dedicated to debuffing your entire team. So this Uma is not going to be placed high because maybe they have low stamina, low speed. Basically, they are a skill fodder. They have nothing but red skills. And their job is not to win, but to slow down your Umas by reducing their velocity, reducing their stamina HP by increasing their fatigue. If they kakari or if they panic, the time for them to get out of panic will be longer. That is a debuff. And this is why target stamina is the word. Having more than your target stamina based on your training and RNG is always a good thing. So just because you reach, say, 500, 600 stamina for a sprint and mile Uma, just because you see a power rainbow training that's really good, doesn't mean that you drop it. Like, you don't not train it because you already meet your stamina levels. Like, no, having extra stamina is always good in PvP, especially because in high levels, like I said, most people have Umas that have debuffs. And these debuffs will attack your HP, your stamina. And if you have more than enough stamina than you need for that category, that means that you can take a couple of debuffs to the face and not worry about gassing out. Now, during career, you also want to do more G1 optional races. For medium and long Umas, you can go for the Triple Crown races, be it the classic Triple Crown, which is Tatsukisho, Japan Derby, and Kikkasho, or the Phillies version, which is Okasho, Japan Oaks, and Shukasho. You also have the Senior Spring Triple, which is Osaka High, Tennosho Spring, and Takarazuka Kinen. You also have the Autumn Triple, which is Tennosho Autumn, Japan Cup, and Arima Kinen. If your mile Uma has high enough aptitude for medium and even long, they can attempt the same race. If you are running a sprinter, however, you will have to rely on what little G1 sprint races there are and some G2 sprints. And if your sprint Uma has aptitude for mile, you have a couple of G1 mile races you can attend, like NHK Mile, Victoria Mile, Mile Championship. Now, the reason why you'd want to run these races is to meet your fan goals for senior year. which is 60,000 fans by early Feb and 70,000 fans plus green relationship level with director by early April. By doing this, you level up your UMA's unique skill by 2 levels, 1 level per fan event. G1 races are also a very invaluable source of skill points, which means you will have plenty of skill points to get multiple gold skills or just multiple skills in general. One good starting point for any UMA, especially if the UMA is medium or long, is to run Hopeful Stakes. That is on December, the late December of their first year, or the Asahi High or Hanshin Juvenile Fillies, which are G1 medium and mile races respectively, for a good amount of fans and also skill points so that you are not pressured in Classic Year to fight more built UMAs in bigger G1 races, because after all, junior year UMAs are more of a raw stat check than skill checks compared to Classic Year, so it is a good opportunity to get a relatively easy G1 win, because the races I just mentioned are G1 races. I know this is a lot to take in, but all this becomes easier to digest and understand once you start applying and testing it yourself. Luck is really something that will definitely you will be hoping for to be on your side when you are trying to build a team for team trial, PvP, endgame UMAs, and you won't get this. You will not reach these goals in one try. Believe me, I have tried multiple times. I feel like every long range UMA I have that have stamina in like 1k range, I think I got lucky. It will take multiple tries, but a first-rate trainer will channel their first-rate nature and never give up. After all, King Halo never gave up after 10 G1 losses before winning their first G1 win on their 11th try. Vodka took a bold risk by ditching the classic Tiara route for one shot at historical greatness and fighting the pinnacle of horse racing as a mare in the Japan Derby, becoming the first mare to win Japan Derby in 64 years. Theo performed a horse racing miracle of racing after 3 major injuries, and on top of that, 365 days of not racing in the racetrack, and their return race was a G1 race in Arimakinen. And they won that retirement race against arguably the strongest of BMW, Kikasho record holder Biwa Hayahide, alongside some of the biggest names of horses in that year, such as Winning Ticket, Medjura Palmer, Rice Shower, Nice Nature, and Matekane Tannhauser. Oguri Cap and Tamamo Cross broke the stigma that ashen or gray horses cannot race. They did this by their own feats, for example, Tamamo Cross being the first horse to win Tenosho Spring and Autumn in the same year, and of course Oguri Cap winning 6 graded races in a row, paving the way for JRA to allow horses like TM Opera O to be able to participate in classic races despite not being registered. Each career run in this context is literally an anime, and you and your UMA are the protagonist. You may have the ideal good ending in mind, but plot twists and turns and character arcs and challenges await you. Win or lose, it is the UMA you choose, and a good trainer will succeed, fail, prosper, and suffer together with their UMA. A heartfelt good luck to you, Foxtrot Trainer, and may you hit your career goals and may RNG be in your favor.